Hello, let's talk today about teaching listening skills, specifically teaching listening skills at the start of the school year. The first thing that we want to do when teaching students about listening is what listening even looks like. And I don't talk about what listening looks like specifically. I talk about how to show others that we are listening. Because listening can look like many different things, especially to our neurodivergent students, like students with ADHD or students with autism. And I want to be respectful of the way that they listen. So the way I frame this conversation is about showing others that we are listening so that others know we can hear them, that we're paying attention to them. So we talk about the different body parts to show others that we are listening. And the first one I talk about is eyes. And I don't insist on eye contact because some students with autism or students from other cultures might not show eye contact, or that might be very uncomfortable for them. And so I never force eye contact on my students. So instead, we talk about following the person speaking with our eyes. So it doesn't have to be looking at them in their eyes, but maybe looking in their general direction. Or if they're holding up a book, you're looking at the book. Or if they're pointing to something, you're looking at what they're pointing at. Or if you're watching something on the screen, your eyes are facing the screen. And so that's how I frame that conversation. And it is really important to know the students in your classroom. And to know if you need to break that down even more specifically, or be more understanding about, where students are looking. But for the most part, that's where I frame my conversation. The next thing we talk about listening is our mouths, and our mouths should be quiet so that other people can hear the person speaking. And I stress quiet. I know some students may make some self-talk while they are listening, or they might stim a little bit, but the end goal is to have it be quiet so that other people can still listen in while the person is speaking. And so we talk about quiet mouths, unless it's our turn to share. Then we talk about our hands. And I did used to say empty hands. And then I realized that some students, particularly students with ADHD or impulsivity, might need fidgets to help them listen, and they won't have empty hands. And so I don't want to single them out for not having empty hands. But the goal, even if they have a fidget or not, is to have quiet hands. Their hands should not be distracting other students. Same with our feet. They should be quiet feet, because we don't want to distract other students with our feet. Some teachers talk about doing crisscross, and they expect only crisscross sitting. And I don't do that. Not everyone likes to sit crisscross, and I want to be respectful for how my students, as their own individuals, like to show their listening and like to sit on the rug, and I want them to be comfortable. So in my rug, we have squares, so it makes a very clear boundary for where they should be sitting. So as long as they are within that square and their body is not getting in someone else's body space, then that is fine. I do have some students who like to sit up like on their knees, and I might put them towards the back of the rug or towards the side. We talk about how sitting up like that affects people behind you. They're not able to see. So if they're in the front, they can't sit like that because people behind them can't see. So that's why I would put them in the back or toward the side. So after we're done talking about how to show we are listening, we want to talk about why we listen. And I break down why we're listening into adults and peers. So why are we listening to adults? And this is a lesson I do from day one, because I'm going over a lot of directions and a lot of routines, and I need them to listen to those. So I tell my students that adults at school are there to help them be safe, learn, and have fun. And if they're giving a direction, it's for one of those three things: to be safe, to learn, or to have fun. And so we need to listen to our directions. when they're given. And I love using Howard B. Wigglebottom, Learns to Listen, for this lesson, because in this book, which there's a free animated version on their website, in this and on YouTube, in this book, Howard B. Wigglebottom doesn't listen, and he gets into all kinds of trouble. He gets accidentally hurt himself, he hurts others, he gets into trouble, and he learns the importance of listening. So I like to use this book to show why we listen to others, about being safe, to learn, and to have fun. Then I talk about why we listen to our peers. And we listen to our peers, our friends, to make connections, to make friends, to show we care, to show interest. And this conversation can take a lot of time to practice and understand, and you have to keep coming back to it, because 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds are very egotistical and in their own world, and they have a hard time understanding that someone else might have different interests than them or a different conversation idea. And so you need to help them learn how to hold a conversation, even if it's not something of interest to them. And so we show others we're listening, we show our peers we're listening by asking questions, by nodding. We want to explicitly teach this by adding on, by making a connection, by waiting till they're finished. And a really good book for this topic is My Mouth is a Volcano by Juliet Cook. Because in this book, I think it's the character's name is Lewis, he is always interrupting because he's so excited to get out what he wants to say. And then he interrupts and people get very frustrated, and they don't think he cares about what they have to say. And so it's a great book for talking about why we listen to our friends and to our family. And I'll just end by going over a few listening activities that you can do with your students. The first one is Simon Says, a classic, an oldie but a goodie. The kids have to listen for you to say Simon Says. And then if you say it, they do the direction. If you don't say it, they shouldn't do the direction. You can replace it with your name too. Like I could do Mrs. McGibbon Says. Red light, green light, another oldie but goodie. They have to listen for the different color lights. Red light is stop, green is go. So they have to be listening very carefully. And if you really want to trick them, say things that start with GR that aren't green, like grass or great. Can't think on the spot. The third activity is called partner listening, and it's where some students you'd say turn and talk, you'd give a conversation starter. Maybe you just said like, what did you do over the weekend? And you have them meet up with a partner. So I do turn and talk in my room, and they listen to the other person say what they did. Then they get a turn to speak. And at the end, you have one partner share out what the other partner did. That's quite tricky. This could be done with content too. Like, what do you know about water? What do you know about butterflies? And then they have to share out what the other person said. So really encouraging them to listen to their peers. Telephone is a classic game. I would caution you to make sure you trust your students to be expected with it, and go over the expectations very clearly, that they should be appropriate. They should be literally repeating the word that they hear. I have definitely chosen not to do this game because I couldn't trust that my students would do it appropriately, and it gets hard to know what's being said if you're not right there. So it's a fun game. It's great for listening, but know your students. And the final one is a listening walk. And there's a great book that goes along with this one called, I think, The Listening Walk. And in this book, the students go out for a mindfulness walk and they listen with their 5 senses. So you'll pause along the walk and you'll say, okay, listen with your eyes. What do you see? Okay. Listen with your nose. What do you smell? And have them share out what they are feeling in that moment. They're being present in the moment. What are they experiencing on their walk? So those are all the ways that I teach listening at the start of the year. And if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them below, and we will check in the next video.